We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday when you're listening to this. It is Thursday night when we're recording this. And we have with us our resident Gen Z person, Jay of the Canadian Way. He's actually in California, but he has plans to move to Canada at some point. Um, so, how's it going out on the West Coast, Jay? What the fuck's going on out there?
Well, first of all, I guess as just a quick weather update from the West Coast, we're dealing with the remnants of Tropical Storm Mario, which,
Really?
yeah, it it wasn't quite a hurricane, but it was pretty damn close.
Okay.
It was tracking northwards towards the Baja Peninsula, and then it hit the cold California current, or rather the Alaska current that goes down past our western coast, and it broke up. And it sounds like from what we've seen, the remains of that are going to just sort of scatter shot the west coast, but it's all south of us. So previously they didn't know where it was going to go, but now it looks like it's going to hit everything up to like the San Francisco Peninsula, but the North Bay and everything else around that is going to be spared. So we may see some drizzle, we may see a little rain, but a lot of other areas in like SoCal and the interior of the state are getting lots of rain and also storms as well, which is never a good thing in California because then, lightning strikes usually mean wildfires.
Wildfires, but at least the rain gives you some water. But you also
That's
have to
true.
deal with the mudslides too, though, right? You have a fair share of them.
Yeah, there's mudslides here and there, but it's nowhere near as bad as in some places. Um, if I had to describe what the storm is actually doing, the storm is not one coherent thing. So whenever there's a hurricane, obviously there's widespread destruction and such, but there's really bad things right towards the center, right? And there it
Right.
has a specific track that it takes. This storm hit the cold water, it broke apart, and then the bits of it are going to kind of hit the coast in one big wall. So it'd be like if you threw a rock and then I don't know, it just spontaneously breaks apart in midair. You're gonna have like a shower of rocks that that hit wherever you're throwing at.
I
That's
gotcha.
basically
I
what it did.
gotcha. Well, I find myself in a weird situation. We had the
Oh,
guidelines changed on TikTok, right?
yeah.
And the guidelines they changed it to basically look like they were coming after liberal or left leaning creators like myself. There were even some creators that have already been banned from TikTok. So I was fully expecting at some point this week that I'd get blown out because I promised I wouldn't do anything different than I'd always been doing for the last 5 years. And I held true to that. I'm doing all the same things, saying all the same shit. Donald Trump's a pussy ass bitch. And, Cash Patel is a dumb motherfucker. So I've been saying all that stuff. And here's the weird part of it I'm still here, still working, but Jimmy Kimmel is out of a job. Go figure.
That that was the most weakling bitch ass move I've ever seen anyone do to anyone. It's Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel, like one of the most famous late night television show hosts of all time, and you just pulled him out like that because, oh, he said some mean things and hurt big baby's feelings.
Well, here's the,
What a bunch of losers.
here's the problem with that. Uh, this is without question. No debate can be had on this. This is um, um, a violation of the First Amendment
Oh, it absolutely
and
is.
and it's censorship. There's no question about it. Um,
It's also, well, more than that, it's a corporation being a corporation. I don't know why we've pretended for all these years that network television networks are our friends. They're not, and they never have been. They've just been conveniently helpful. So this is just it is all those things, yeah, but it's also just corporations being corporations and, late stage capitalism and all that.
well, networks are a lot like lawyers. They will benefit you as much as they have to in order to fill their pockets. That's really
Yeah.
how they look at it. They'll give you enough of a taste so they can make their money, but making their money is first and foremost their priority. But my point of this is this one situation may cause them the most problems because it is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. Uh, Jimmy Kimmel says some benign joke. It wasn't even really a big deal. Donald Trump's just trying to exercise his muscle. He goes to the FCC. The FCC goes to Disney and ABC and says, look, you're going to fire him or you're going to have trouble with this upcoming merger.
Of course it's a fucking merger. It's always the mergers.
And so they're worried about making their money. And they technically suspend Jimmy Kimmel is what they do. But for all intents and it's when I hear them saying they suspended Jimmy Kimmel, I think of TikTok because TikTok's also violating the First Amendment rights of just about everybody. When I talked to the guy who dealt with TikTok, he said, these changes in the guide rules, they're only temporary. That's what these fuckers do. They say they will do what Donald Trump wants up until the time they get what they want from Donald Trump. TikTok's in the process of trying to work a deal out, and we've got ABC and Disney trying to get some kind of merger set up. Uh, but you could tell they're starting to flail now because when they got rid of Colbert, remember that was a big news, and they said, okay, Stephen, we're not going to re up your next contract. So you have till X and X time to do the show, and we're not going to re up it. Okay. Donald Trump was responsible for uh, kicking him out the door. If ABC and Disney had said, Jimmy Kimmel, we don't like you anymore. We don't like you anymore. You're not making us enough money. You need to go. That would not be a First Amendment violation or or censorship. The fact the government had something to do with it makes it a violation. And we know what happened. Donald Trump talked to the FCC chief. The FCC chief talked to ABC. But you know what the real determining factor is that makes this a violation? It happened like that. Networks have a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot invested into these shows. The fact that they shut them down in a day tells you this was pushed by Donald Trump. And if it was pushed by Donald Trump, this is a problem with violating the First Amendment. And we're hearing from Republicans and Democrats about this. This seems to be a bridge too far for some people, and it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear that from there's three main content creators I follow right now on YouTube. That's Park Rose Promo bit dip has up dip sorry, ADHD brain. There's Park Rose Permaculture, who's the left side equivalent of a alt right crunchy vegan mom. Like she's the opposite version of that. Like she's very much on the left, and she's all about sustainable like permaculture and what she calls regenerative society. She speaks awfully formally, and she's gotten me through a lot of really rough times with this past thing. But I listen to her. I listen to Knitting Cult Lady, who is not actually in a cult. She grew up in the Children of God religious cult, and then later went into what she describes as the cult of the U.S. Army. She's a former military vet. It's part of thanks to her and Park Rose Permaculture that I've been able to confidently say when people doom say and scream and cry about martial law, it ain't gonna work here.
Right.
Just ask the former military person. There's now a third person, also a former, raised by, former raised by Trumplafucks person whose name is Cult College, who explains all the things about cult thinking and what's going on the right and the fact that they're literally falling apart because this whole thing has got the right literally just falling apart at the seams.
Right.
And I have to say that even what really frustrates me is this was your breaking point. Really,
Yeah, it took this long.
this was your breaking point. It wasn't all the blatantly fascist stuff he said leading into this, the immoral, illegal, and unethical stuff that this man spewed constantly on the campaign trail, the fact that everything he told you was a lie and we could prove it to you, that all wasn't enough for you?
That's the crazy thing about it. I mean, so many things have happened that are so obvious and so in your face, and they just turn a blind eye to it. They either don't comprehend it, don't understand it, or are complicit. It's one of the three.
Well, exactly. And the point is, you may be wondering, what's going on with these people? Why are they behaving this way? Do they do they have some kind of brain tumor, or do they have, are their brains literally damaged? And to that latter answer, I'd say, actually, yeah, their brains are damaged. And the reason I can prove it is now, let me rephrase here. A lot of people on the right, they're on the right overall, their brains are damaged in that they're not necessarily damaged, but they're underdeveloped. The parts of their brain that are responsible for things like the fight or flight response are
Hmm.
overdeveloped, and the things that are responsible for empathy and compassion and things are underdeveloped. So
Right.
literally their brains don't work properly because they don't have the right hardware for it. Now, this is talking about the right in general. When it comes to MAGA, what brain is all I would have to say. There's not even anything there. There's just nothing.
There's an incredible amount of stupidity there. It has to be stupidity. That's the nicest way I can put it, because otherwise you're just an evil motherfucker. So it's got to be
No, there
stupidity or arrogance or whatever it is.
no, there's that too. And honestly, I will say this. We cannot You cannot reconcile with people who do not want to be reconciled with.
Oh,
You
absolutely. Yeah.
you cannot respect and live in harmony with people who refuse to recognize your humanity because they have none.
You're absolutely right. We're dealing with, behavior on the right that's, you could almost term them animals, because they're okay with the
Oh
pain
no.
and suffering of other people, and they're happy as hell, and they want to dance a
Yeah.
fucking jig every time somebody's hurt.
Yeah. Now I'm going to get really really dark for a second because I have no other choice. I'm at my wits end and at the end of my rope with these so-called people. When all this is over and we're back in control, because we will be, all the people resigning from the House and the Senate, leaving all those seats open for the midterms, that's a blowout for us.
Yeah.
That's a blue tsunami. When Eric talks about the fact that Republicans fucking up the economy as badly as they are, they may not hold control again for 20 years. I'm pretty sure they're not going to hold control again for 100 years or more with how bad it's getting, and
Yeah.
just the number of red lines they've crossed with just everyone. Now, that's the setup. We're going to get back in power, and we're gonna be there for a while. When it comes to maybe not all the right, when it comes to like the classical conservatives and the Reagan era people, I had the good fortune of being able to talk to one of them on a live, and he was talking about the older I get, the more progressive I become
Yeah.
because a lot of those people are waking up and realize that Reagan conned them. People like Jace, our own very own Jace from Texas. He went hard for Reagan back in the day, and I don't hold that against him. I don't blame him for that because as evil as Ronald Reagan was, and he was evil, make no mistake, I will hate that piece of shit until the day I die. But god damn was he good at making his evil sound like a good thing and selling it as a product.
Well, that's
So,
the one thing about Reagan. I was the first person I ever voted for president. I'm ashamed to say it in retrospect, but that's what I did. It was a different time. It was 1979, 80, or 80, 81. And we were going through some rough times with Jimmy Carter. It seemed like Jimmy Carter couldn't do anything right. And we voted for Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan wasn't an incredibly sharp guy, but what he had over Donald Trump was he was smarter than Donald Trump, no question about it. But he was a masterful communicator. He was an actor. He knew how to talk. And when he talked, he came off kind of grandfatherly, like he cared. Whether that was true or not, it didn't matter because he sounded like it. You know, when people want to compare Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan, while both being pieces of shit, there is no comparison. Ronald Reagan
No.
was a lot smarter, better president, even though he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, no. I mean, when you say he had experience acting and communicating as an actor, he certainly had a lot of experience pretending to not be the devil's love child. So there is you can say
Yeah.
that much for him.
Now, granted, he wasn't in all the big movies. He was in the movies about bedtime for Bonzo with monkeys. He did about three of them. He wasn't in great movies, but they were all better than the uh, shitty TV show that Donald Trump was in. And at least not until the end, I can't remember anybody discussing Ronald Reagan shitting his pants, unless maybe toward the end of his term. But
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was a better showman than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just a freak show. You know, he does crazy shit just to
It's a bad
catch
freak
people's
show too.
attention. Oh, it is. It certainly is.
It's like
Um,
you don't pay them for privilege to see it. They pay you to stay and watch the shit.
well, yeah, and you know that's what the media did for 10 years with him. No matter how crazy he was, they knew it was good for television, so they just kept feeding the monkey, man. Just keep feeding him, and he'll keep dancing.
Everyone who was involved with that fucking scam sham of a show needs to be in jail when this is all over. Every single one of them, from top to bottom, inside out, put them in the slammer because every single one of those people is directly responsible for where we are now. If they hadn't given him that show, he would be bankrupt. Maybe he wouldn't even be around anymore because maybe the mob would have come after him because I'm sure he had mob connections. But
Yeah,
you idiots who propped him up directly caused this, and for that, all you need to go to the slammer.
you know, people talked about his mob connections, and I would just say my guess is his connections to the mob were akin to his connections to Vladimir Putin. He was an asset of theirs, but he was basically a useful idiot. He wasn't smart enough to be part of what Vladimir Putin is planning or trying to do, or what the mob was planning or trying to do. They knew he had position, they knew he had some money and power, so they used him to their benefit. The mob did it back in the day. And of course, Vladimir Putin and every other dictator in this world is fucking doing it to Donald Trump now. And he doesn't even realize he's getting fucked over, but he is.
Yeah. All
You know,
right.
I wanted to bring something up because you are the closest person I can talk to that would know about this stuff. And I don't even know that you do know about it.
All
But of
right.
course
Hit me.
we had the situation with Charlie Kirk passing away, right? He was murdered. And for all intents and purposes, that's a tragic thing. Not so much that I care about Charlie Kirk. An event like that happening in this country in public, that's not a good look for the United States, and it's not a good feel for the climate in this country. Of course, the Republicans come out immediately try to say, oh, it's the Democrats. And then the Democrats are saying, well, no, it's a Republican. And in the end, it really didn't matter because what it really was, it sounds like, was something other than either one of those two. It was something different. So we're hearing about this culture that this kid, this Tyler Robinson, is in, and it's called Groiper or whatever. The reason I'm asking you about it is because he's a young kid. He's 22 years old. He's a gamer. He's in the underbelly of some culture that I know you're not in, but you maybe have a better understanding of what's going on because by virtue of your age. Is there any way you can explain what this shit is? Because it seems very right on the right side of things, but there are some things to it that don't seem right. And that's what the Republicans are playing off. Yeah, he's all right, alt right, and his parents were MAGA, but he was living with a transgender male to woman, which she wasn't really a transgender. It's something they called a femboy, which is different than a transgender type situation. So because of that, he must be liberal. He must have been radicalized by the liberals, but that wasn't the case. I mean, this whole culture that we're hearing about with Gen Zs and younger, we old people just don't fucking get it. I don't even understand what the hell is that. Do you have any more understanding of what's going on there than us?
I can explain what Groypers are. I hope you all are ready for this because the words I've got to say about them are not very nice. So, I mean, it's equal parts not nice and also, I mean, is it really mean if it's true? For one thing, but for
No,
another, okay, Groypers are to for the short version, I would say that Groypers are basically just fans of Nick Fuentes, who we've discussed on this show. He was an even bigger piece of shit. He is an even bigger piece of shit than Charlie Kirk was.
right.
And, he's a white nationalist, he's a white supremacist, he's a conspiracy theorist, and all around sweat from Satan's balls. But the
And when we hear that, when old people like that hear that, well, he's fucking MAGA, but he's not really.
no, apparently MAGA isn't evil enough for him.
Okay.
And that's the thing that it is with all Groypers basically is Groypers are a part of this really horrible tumorous growth of youth culture that is called the incel movement or the incel community. And what incel means is involuntarily celibate.
Meaning they
Or
can't get laid.
yeah, or as I like to call them, um, Mr. Can't Mr. Can't get his dick wet times 1,000.
Okay.
But
Fair
but the
enough.
point is that these people, these guys, sorry, these absolute disgraces to humanity believe that they are owed sex, basically. They think that women owe them that and that women should be objects for them to get what they want. They think that they are owed a sexual relationship, basically, and that
They
it's
don't
the
have
woman's
them.
fault. Yeah, exactly. But they think they should. And so already you can tell why I hate these fucks so much is for one thing, hey fellas, women don't owe you a goddamn thing, okay? You gotta earn it. And second of all, these guys say just the most absurdly awful shit imaginable about women. There's a lot of stuff that I literally can't repeat here because even YouTube wouldn't like that.
Okay.
But even worse than that, incels have an attitude of like basically they think if a girl goes out wearing a certain type of outfit, she deserves to be sexually assaulted. It's fucking inhuman, it's unbelievable, it's disgusting, and quite frankly, I would not care at all. In fact, I'd probably pop a soda if every single incel on this planet just dropped fucking dead.
So
Come after me
what you're
for that,
saying,
YouTube, I dare you.
what you're saying there is kind of in line with what might have happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, a woman would get raped and they go, "Well, what were you wearing?" And then trying to attribute the fact to what she's wearing to excuse this guy's criminal behavior. It was ridiculous. And if you were young then and you look back, you go, Jesus Christ, that's pretty fucked up. So are you telling me these groypers, the essence or the basis for which they are a group is their mutual dislike for women?
Yeah, that's where it starts, but this is like I mean, this is real this it's really just like The Apprentice. It starts off bad and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse because for one thing, let me just give my 2 cents on how I feel about people who go around saying things like, "Oh, if a woman's wearing her skirt too short, she deserves to get harassed." Okay, so you're saying that because she's wearing short clothing, she's asking for it? Okay, well, you're not wearing a hard hat, so let me get my Louisville Slugger and we'll see who wins this fucking thing.
Yeah.
But but even more so than that, Groypers are all right. Incels are already terrible. They're some of the worst of the worst that the youth of this country or anywhere really has to offer. Groypers are the worst of them. So they're the worst of the worst of the worst. And the reason I say that is because Groypers, they are they're so far right they're almost coming out on the far left because they trade in really horrible anti-everything memes. They just like to troll people. They believe in every conspiracy theory under the sun. Obviously, only they only believe in the ones that overall benefit the majority of them, which is young white dudes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. You fuckheads. I'm looking at you. And it just
The thing that intrigues me about this is it's
uh,
somehow incorporated in with gamers. Now, I just thought gamers were losers that sat in their room and played games all day. Uh, Present company accepted. but but now you're telling me it's more of a culture thing. People were even talking about Reddit. I have occasion to look at Reddit for different things, but I understand that Reddit has kind of a deep dark side too. And when you put the gaming and Reddit and other internet type things, these people have created a culture that I don't know ever existed, at least in my lifetime. I mean, they've gone to the dark side and then some, and they're kind of off on their own. We can't say they're MAGA. We can't say they're liberal, certainly. This is just a whole new fucking animal.
yeah, emphasis on animal because some of the shit these guys say is just you look at that and you're like, yeah, no way a human being said that. That's got to be a chatbot or something that was just trained on the worst speeches of the most evil people in history. There's no way an actual living human being said this. But nope, more often than not, it's an actual living being. And if okay, to understand the thing with the Groypers and Charlie Kirk getting popped is, for one thing, Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk, and their respective fan bases fucking hated each other. Nick,
What was the impetus for that? Just because they think differently, or were they talking shit about one another, or what caused that rift?
to put it simply, Nick Fuentes and his Groyper army, because they're basically, it's like the armies of Mordor, basically, um, hated Charlie Kirk and all the Turning Point people for being too soft, basically, for not being willing to goose step around in the street doing the salute wearing their red armbands, basically.
I heard it was
Because
specific. I heard in some points it was specifically about being soft on Israel. Is that tied into it too?
yeah, Groypers hate Groypers really hate Israel not because of what it's doing, but just because it's full of Jewish people, at least in their minds,
Right.
and they hate everything related to that because again they believe the banking conspiracy theory and all that nonsense. They believe the Great Replacement theory. These guys believe every single someone's out to get you conspiracy there is, and
You gotta wonder if this isn't a feeder program or the minor leagues for the likes of the Proud Boys or some of these other
oh, it
fucking
is.
groups.
It absolutely is. Another thing also is that to explain what a and I do actually happen to know what this is because it's all over Reddit. People are always talking about it. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist community of California, or at least of the West Coast of the Pacific Coast, and a lot of members of that would identify as this, or would have what you would call an OC, which is an original character that's like artwork done by them that are these.
Right.
So what a femboy is it's not a first of all a femboy is not a transgender person or not full like that. A femboy is just a dude, a boy, obviously, who is so effeminate that they would be a girl if it was a fact that they're not. Yeah,
They play a role though. I mean, I heard Nick
yeah.
Fuentes. I've seen pictures, Nick Fuentes with one of these femboys. So is Nick Fuentes gay or what's the deal? I mean, they aren't
I
they
I
complain
have
about not
no
having sex. Are they just asexual or what?
I I have no idea. I mean, you're asking someone who is has reasonable experience in identifying with fellow humans to judge the mind of something that God scraped off the bottom of the pot after making the first humans. right?
Yeah.
You're asking me to identify what's going on with this weird cancerous growth on the collective body of the human race, and I'm like, I got nothing. I don't know. I mean, how do we explain how do you explain something that's so evil and so contradictory that you just like your head almost explodes just thinking about it?
Here's the thing, and I'm wondering what would cause this. I mean, say we're talking about street gangs, okay, Crips, Bloods, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're horrific groups of people. But I understand how they got that way, you know? I'm not
Yeah.
justifying it or think it's a good thing, but I understand how it got that way. This group of people we're talking about, how does that fucking happen? Does that come from their parents? Does that come from gaming? Does that come from the internet? I'm not one of these people that believe, oh, I saw it on TV, so I'm going to do it. I don't believe in that shit. But something had to be the start of this group. Maybe it has something to do with got a bunch of 20-year-old kids that don't know fuck all about fuck all and just want to be contrary. I don't know.
Well, first off, I think I might petition the world to start calling a group of groypers a groyp because that's only
That sounds
natural.
good. Yeah.
Second of all, I think it started with the corruption of the of Pepe the Frog, who, by the way, was a
What?
hold
Explain
on.
that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to explain it. Pepe the Frog is a character on a comic strip by this guy named Matt Furie, Furie, who he was a thing mostly back in the early to mid 2000s. So back in the days when things like 4chan were starting to take off. Like it was the early days of like the early days of message boards and early social media, things like that.
Hmm.
So the original Pepe the Frog meme comes from, and I swear to God this is true, Pepe using a urinal, and his friend comes into the room because his pants are down around his ankles. Have you ever met someone who uses the urinal like that with their pants down around
I've,
their ankles? Have you met people like that?
I've seen people like that, but I don't know that they might have been disabled mentally. So you don't.
Yeah, you don't know, but at the same time, no one wants to see that, man.
No,
But at the
definitely not.
but at the same time, okay. Anyway, back to the point. The other character who is a fox, I think, is asking Pepe the Frog, "Why do you got your pants around your ankles?" And Pepe the Frog goes, "Feels good, man." That's literally where it starts. Is that single panel was taken as a meme, and then it people made all sorts of memes about it, and then the alt right ones started showing up, like him with the mustache man hair saying like, unalive Jews man and things like that. It was just it really it got super duper out of control, and Matt Fury got really upset about it. Even now today, he's in an ongoing war with the Groypers and everyone else involved with the alt right meme subculture, trying to get his character back. So
So you're telling me this came about, this culture started with a cartoon frog, and these people seemed to gravitate to it, and then they continued to essentially vandalize the cartoon to fit whatever the weirdest thing they could come up with. That's where
yeah,
this started.
it it started off as well. It's that, but it's also it started off as trolling. I think the problem is the more a lot of these people said these things, the more they believed it. They started to believe their own trolling. And how you troll yourself into believing what you're trolling with, I have no fucking idea. Again, you're asking me to understand literal hellspawn at this point. So, who knows?
But if I look back to the 1960s, the whole hippie generation, people were worried about the hippies and they were dangerous or they were doing drugs, but it was a culture that people kind of gravitated to and kind of evolved in. Hippies were a separate community. Of course, at the time, they were nonviolent. They were against anti-establishment, and people were fearful of them too. So, is this something that just you got a group of young people? that are fucking goofy on their own, and it just kind of evolves to this. It starts out at
Yeah.
one point and then it just gets worse and worse and worse because that's what young white boys do. They take some, when you're sitting around with your friends when I was 20 years old, you'd say some shit to one of your friends. They say something worse to you and you'd go back and forth until it got really fucking disgusting.
Yeah, it's that, but on steroids, and also a lot of the people getting involved in this are chronically alone and chronically online, which is a huge problem that we really need to fix. But the reason that this is significant is that the Groypers just hate everyone and everything, basically. They want to troll the entire world, except they also believe what they're trolling. They hated Charlie Kirk for not being extreme enough, and I guess one of them took him out because they thought it would be the ultimate troll move to his audience.
Do you think because of this infighting between the Groypers and Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk, do you think it was an organized effort? Do you think maybe there were other people involved in this? I keep seeing pictures and hearing about, well, there was another shooter or was this and that. Do you think this was an organized official attack by the Groypers on the Charlie Kirk group?
Could have been. It could also have been just one guy snapping and losing it, because that's usually what happens in a lot of these cases. Um, is it possible that this, like some people were saying, this was a hit by the Mossad because he was talking shit about Israel?
Sure, a lot of people
I mean,
talk about it.
I guess it could be, but it seems less likely now than it was in the past, because I thought that since the guy had military training, it was like, okay, either it's Israel taking him out for talking smack about them, or it's somebody on the Epstein list hiring a hitman to take him out so he doesn't talk about it anymore. Which makes no sense because he already wasn't talking about it anymore because he got that little phone call.
Right, right, exactly. And that was the interesting thing. He was talking against Donald Trump about the Epstein list. He gets the call and then he goes, "Yeah, let's not talk about it anymore." Um, what about Charlie Kirk's group, the young MAGA fucks? Um, do you see this as lighting a fire of maybe more violence or more fighting between these two entities?
I don't see any other way it ends. And the more
Really?
that, yeah, and the more that the truth comes out, and the more that we on the left just keep calling them out and staying back and just letting them go at each other, I feel like the angrier at each other they're going to get, until we're basically going to end up with the equivalent of a gang war on the alt right between the Turning Point folks, that's Charlie Kirk's crowd, and the Groypers, that's Nick Fuentes' crowd. And it could end with the leaders of both sides dead, because, I mean, the Groypers struck first, they took out Charlie Kirk. It may go the other way. Somebody in Charlie Kirk's crowd may take out Nick Fuentes, or it may not. I don't know. But based on how these things have historically gone, you know, I don't see a bright future for either one of them, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that seems like a likelihood based on how volatile both these groups are. I mean, they are absolutely volatile. When this happened, obviously it didn't surprise you that Donald Trump and the Republicans did everything they could to blame the Democrats, those violent Democrats. And then it comes out that it's this guy who's a groyper. Immediately they thought he was MAGA because his family was MAGA, and the right said he's not MAGA. And Grandma came up and said, "Yeah, we all MAGA." So it was hard for them to spin that narrative, and it drove them nuts. They really wanted it badly to be a Democrat. In fact, the governor, Spencer Cox of Utah, said, "We prayed that it was somebody that wasn't part of us, but alas, it was us." And there were people just really upset by the fact of who did this shooting. Um, but the Republicans are trying so hard to create this deeper division between the Democrats and the Republicans because I think that's the only way they think they can win anything going into the future. They're a dying party. They're fucking up. Donald Trump is destroying the country. Like you said, when we come to the midterms, they're in some deep trouble because they've got 27 people in
Ooh.
Congress that are retiring, and it's not going well for them.
Yeah, no, deep trouble was like a couple thousand feet ago. You're in the deep dark depths now. Um, that brings me back to what I said when we get back in power, because we will get back in power. I don't
Yeah,
care what I don't care what the doomsayers say. I don't care what the doom scroller bros or the it's all over people say. First of all, I said this before on the show and I'm going to say it again. Stop it to
yeah,
those
I
people.
agree.
Stop it. You're not helping anything. If you want to I said this on I think it was Trucker T's life. Either use the either use the either use the turret or get out of the gunner seat and let somebody else step in to take your place. Don't just sit there mewling and whining, like, I don't know how to fire this thing. Then get out and let somebody who does step in after you. It's not that
Right.
hard. But
Well, I did a TikTok, and people always look at me as always having hope, and some people deride me for having hope. And I said, here's how the way you got to look at it. I've lived a relatively long life compared to you, certainly, um, and you really got two choices. You either have hope for the future, or you just acknowledge that you're giving up. Those are the only two alternatives. I choose not to give up. And after 65 years of going through plenty of shit like everybody else, trials, tribulations, tragedy, I'm still here. So hope served me well. And we go through the 60s, which was an incredibly turbulent decade. Four assassinations, the Vietnam War, protest, riots, all kinds of shit happened then. It was bad in the 60s, but we found our way out of there too. So we can only presume that we're going to find our way out of this particular situation. I'm confident of it.
yeah,
If for no other reason, then the Republicans will destroy themselves.
yeah, no, exactly. And also to all the people out there who are saying, oh, well, JD Vance will be worse. He gets in, the real FAFO begins. You really think that the MAGA personality cult is going to rally around Vlyliner Futon? Like
Yeah,
the guy with the personality of a wet pool noodle?
yeah.
Really? I mean, that it's unbelievable. I mean, sure, it's not going to be great when he's in there, but for the most part, it's just going to be a whole lot of nothing. Nothing's going to get done because Democrats hate him, Republicans don't like him. They don't think he's the future of the party. He's just a nobody. He's a nothing.
Well, yeah, and this is one of the things I try to tell people. When you have problems, and we all have our problems in our lives, sometimes you have so many problems it's insurmountable. And we're kind of in that situation now. If Donald Trump does something and goes away, then we got JD Vance, and then we got Congress, and then we've got this. When you put yourself in that situation, you're putting yourself in a no win situation. The better way to look at it is what's the biggest problem? Let's fix that. And then once that's fixed, let's look at the next problem. And then the next problem after that. That's the way to manage it. And frankly, if we cut the head off the snake, meaning Donald Trump, everything gets more manageable. It may not be where we want it, but it's better than it was. So then we can regroup and say, okay, we got JD Vance and this is our problem. So we can address that. Once that's gone, we can focus on it. And that's the only way to navigate through this and get out the other side and get back on a normal track. But everybody wants to fix everything at once and say, well, if this happens, it's still going to be bad because of this. And everybody seemed to be trying to manifest the absolute downfall of everything we know and love, and that's just not the right way to do it.
No, it isn't. It really isn't. That said, though, once all this is over, okay, I'm just gonna say this because someone's gonna have to say it, and if they won't, I'll do it. Somebody in the comments of a lot of these videos has been saying, I agree with I don't know why you would take this stance. I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. We need a national divorce of like splitting up the country into blue states and red states. Do I support that idea? I didn't. I used to. I don't anymore because I've taken a new thing. Here's the thing: land doesn't vote. People do.
Right.
That's one thing. Also, it would be basically impossible to divide up the country that way, because how would you do it? There's too many, blue cities in red states and red counties in blue states, and it's a total mess all around.
Well, and everybody talks about we've got to unify, we got to come together, and what she's suggesting is quite the opposite of that. And here's the problem: we create that division. Then what do we create? We create a rivalry. We've got the red states who are going to suck ass because they have no money, and we have the blue states. So the red states will be coming after the blue states. It's just starting another civil war by doing this
That's
national
probably that's
divorce.
probably what they want,
Well,
because
yeah,
we all know who's paying them to try and do that.
yeah, absolutely. I think anybody sitting there saying, "I know exactly what we need to do and how we are going to fix it," is making a huge mistake. Here's what I've learned about life. When you have a problem, you do what you do, see what happens. Then you do what you do with whatever is in front of you. And you keep doing that because things will change. You'll go down different paths. You got to follow it down the road until you've completed whatever you have to do to fix the situation. To sit and say, well, just have a national divorce, that's not a good answer. That's not a thoughtful answer because it won't fucking work. Um, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, not the sharpest among us. She's like all the other Trumplafucks, emotional and reactionary. And when you get to that point, and if that's how you behave, you're going to make a lot of fucking mistakes. So we don't need somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Donald Trump. He's the same way. This is why he's having problems. He doesn't think things out. He doesn't look to the future. He just pulls something out of his ass and says, that must be genius because I said it. And of course, it fails, and he looks stupid over and over again.
Yeah, no, exactly. I would say I kind of just to complete my thought from earlier, I would say I kind of believe in a form of national divorce, but it's not dividing up the land between the two different people. What I mean by it is you saying we need a national divorce. I'm like, yeah, and the door is right there. Now let me clarify what I mean by that. I am a firm believer in the idea of you abuse it, you lose it. Meaning, if you have a privilege or whatever thing you have, and you misuse that privilege or that status or whatever else it is you have to hurt other people, to make it so that other people can't enjoy life, you don't deserve whatever that thing is anymore. You should have
Yeah.
it taken away. And as far as I'm concerned, once we do get back in power, because we will, stop with the doomsaying, people. It's going to happen eventually. It may take us a while, but we're going to get there. What we need to do is build something like what Europe has, where the people work for businesses and for the state, but the state and the businesses work for the people as well. We need something that's closer, if we're going to bring this up, closer to what Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin thought of in their model for the original design for communism. Not all the way in there, because people like Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin corrupted it and built the Soviet Union based on that. The Soviet Union was not communist, people. It wasn't. They just claimed that it was and built this whole bullshit narrative of, oh, we're running a government for the people. Oh, we're put in there by the people. Bullshit. You were put in there as a dictator, and you did that
Right.
yourself. But here's the thing, though. What we need to do is we need to set up something that's closer to what the original founders of that envisioned, in a way that it can't get corrupted. So if I would explain that, what we need is a system that has elements of the very of elements of that of the economic left and elements of the economic right. So we need a capitalist system with socialistic elements, or a socialist system with capitalistic elements. It doesn't really matter, whichever you think is better. That's my preface for all of this. Everyone, almost everyone, will be able to have a bite of this new cake. People on the left, people in the center, people on the center right. But when it comes to the really hard right and the Trumplafucks, you guys will get nothing. You will get nothing. And in fact, not only will you get nothing, you're actually going to have stuff taken away. If I if I could really have it my way for this, every single person who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 would literally just have their citizenship revoked and would just be exiled from the country. You're not allowed to own anything. You're not allowed to buy anything. You're not allowed to sell anything. You're just going to have to go off into the wilderness and make your own medicine out of crushed up leaves and rainwater. And you people in the comments may be saying, but Jay, how will these people survive? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the part where we want them to.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. That's a nice thought. That's a happy thought, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But we know that's not going to happen. There's going to have to, as much as you don't like it, we know this country. Although I thought this, I said something that may end up being very prophetic. When Donald Trump first got elected in 2016, I wasn't on TikTok or anything. I was talking to some friends, maybe put it on Facebook. I said, Donald Trump will, without a doubt, destroy the Republican Party.
Oh yeah, they're done.
And he might very well destroy the entire system, which would be hard, but may not be a bad idea because our system is troubled both on the Democratic and Republican side. So if there was ever a time when we get an adjustment or a change to the way we govern this country, it could be now, just by virtue of being forced to do it because of how poorly it's working now.
Yeah. I also wanted to explain my thinking from about 5 seconds ago. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel like we have to literally just exile 77 million people to the middle of the wilderness to basically rough it out on their own. I don't want to have to think that way. But it's kind of like we're in one. You know how if you're playing soccer or baseball, if you do too many things, you get a red card and then you're out of the game?
Right,
You guys, you guys are at like 50 red cards by this point.
right.
It's not strike three so much as strike 3,000. You should have been out 10 years ago. Hit the dirt.
Well, and that's the thing. I've argued with people about this, and they said, well, when they realize that they were wrong, we've got to accept them in, forgive them, hug them, and bring them into the fold. And I always say I can't do that. And the reason I say that is because not because I can't forgive people, but the level of which they tried to destroy this country and destroy the future for my kids and grandkids. I mean, you can do a lot of things to me. You fuck with my kids and my grandkids. It's hard to forgive that. But more importantly, if they say, geez, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Please help me. I can't trust them because the
No.
next clown show that comes on a fucking covered wagon, they're going to jump on board again. And then we go through all this again. That's why, when I hear of people on the Republican side getting burnt down, like the farmers and such, I'm all for it. Not because I want to be cruel, because apparently that's what it's going to take for them to learn the lesson. They didn't learn it from the first term. They voted for him again. The farmers got beat up the first time. They voted for him again. Apparently, they have to lose all their shit if they are ever going to learn to make better choices.
Yeah, well, greed and racism are expensive. So
Yeah.
there's that. Another thing is, I like to sum up that whole argument with a simple sort of, I don't know, visual or mnemonic or however you want to describe it. If a zombie is trying to eat your face off, you don't stand there trying to negotiate with it like, oh hey, now let's talk this out. Ugh. No, you're gonna grab the nearest handy machete or baseball bat or shotgun or what have you and blow that fucker's head off before it does the same to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the only bit of advice that my father gave me in my lifetime that I understood and agreed with. He said, there is no rules in a street fight. You're not bound by any rules in a street fight. And if there is a stick laying there next to where you're fighting, pick that motherfucker up first because those they will too, and use that fucker and win the fight. And we're kind of at the stage right now. They've got the dirty tricks and the horrible behavior. And now we're seeing more Democrats being more aggressive, more assertive. And we really have to play in that theater. We have to play with their rules ultimately. Otherwise, we're going to continue to lose. And I know a lot of people, like the Schumers and the Hakeem Jeffries, may not have the stomach for it. They find it distasteful, but that's fine. It is distasteful, but we are where we are. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. And unfortunately, that's the only way to beat this situation if we are just as tough and just as aggressive as the Republican Party.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, when in Rome, put lead in everything and slowly go crazy. So that's
Yeah.
that's why the argument of, oh, we're, even not the I've seen people saying, oh, we're Nazi Germany, oh, it's going to be the Holocaust but worse. Motherfucker, shut up. First of all, we're not 1930s Germany. We're not. They were a very obedient and, go with the flow kind of culture. We're not. We're assholes, for one thing. And for another, this also isn't the fall of the Roman Empire.
No.
It's more like the decline of Egypt between the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, or the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom. It's a period of darkness between a period that's coming before a period of prosperity. And I'm convinced that's the case because a lot of people are actually a lot more open to the things we usually stand for, things like, social programs and stuff like that. Also, really important as to why this is not the fall of the Roman Empire is that the Romans had lead in everything and it made them slowly go crazy. But we don't have that. We don't have lead in everything, and no, not everybody's not going crazy. People are still going crazy, but not because of lead poisoning.
Right. Right. Yeah. People do want to be doomsayers about everything. And I guess that's natural for people. I think people do that as a cry for help. Oh, my world's imploding on me. Everything is going to go, hoping somebody will step up and give them an answer or give them a hand. And unfortunately, in this world, in this day and age, just the opposite is happening. All the safety nets, all the helping hands are being taken away from us. So we have to acknowledge that and realize we've got to fight on our own. And some people just aren't up for it. So those of us that can, we have to step it up and make sure it's done. We aren't at the end of an empire. That's not quite it. I look at it more as a painful stock market adjustment, or correction. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You go through some rocky shit so it can correct itself and get back to normal. I kind of see it like that. And that may be understating it because of the pain that people are going through it. But I think it's more of a correction than it is the end.
yeah. Speaking of the end, I also wanted to just sort of publicly apologize to Will really quickly for what I said on the live. I know I kind of got after him for using the uh the really like apocalyptic language. I was not talking about the ice situation because obviously that's terrible. It's borderline apocalyptic. I was not disagreeing with him on that. That I absolutely agree with him on. What I was trying to tell him is I know it's bad and it is bad. I'm not denying that. I'm not trying to deny that. I'm not trying to downplay it. But but don't say it's the end of everything. It's the end of the human species. Smartest man on the cinder. World War III. Don't take away people's hope, man. Because for some people that's all they got. And if they hear you talking like this and that's just the last straw for them that night, they may go jump off a bridge that same night and then their blood is on your hands effectively. You don't want that
Yeah.
on your consciousness, do you?
Yeah. I think everybody can agree that's been part of the Rational Boomer podcast. We love Will. We love his passion. Um, he comes from a different place than I do. I can't understand. I'm a white guy in a blue state. I'm an old white guy in a blue state. He's a brown guy in a purple or red state, and he's in a much different situation. I understand his fear and his concern.
Now,
My
funny
problem with that, my problem with being, my problem with being a doomsayer is that this is not the time to break people's spirits. This is time for people to be building confidence and ready to fight. It's one thing if you want to give up and think the world's going to end, that's cool. But you don't want to spew it out to everybody and take some other people out of the equation. We got to fight and we need as many strong people fighting. And as much as Will is sometimes kind of a doomsday kind of guy, he's also a fighter too. So I know he's not doing it to himself, but we got to be careful to not take away the hope and the confidence and the assertiveness of people out there. We need everybody fucking fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it's funny you should say red or purple, purple or red state earlier, because as Parker's permaculture put it, there's actually no such thing as red states. There's only very heavily gerrymandered purple states, because
That may be true.
Republicans aren't actually that popular. Most of the reason they win in like very rural places like North and South Dakota is because they cheat, and they've been cheating forever.
That's that's weird that you would say that. The that comes from the Gropers or MAGA, the Charlie Kirk people.
I tried to say Park Rose permaculture is
Oh, so that's
who's
totally
talking about.
different. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just okay, I got you. Well, that's a very astute assessment because there
the
there may be some truth to
yeah,
that.
that's why I abandoned the idea of a national divorce, is because there's no such thing as a red state. Or like I said, land doesn't vote, people do. There's no such thing really as a blue state or a red state. There's kind of just blue states, and then there's very much gerrymandered red states. Don't get me wrong, there's still red areas in blue states as well, but generally by far most of the people are far more blue in the blue states. There's just less
I've
red people in the red states than we think.
yeah, exactly. And I've said that I kind of feel like with all that's gone on over the last 10 years, we've kind of outgrown the whole blue state against red state, the blue state red state thing. For me, I never associated myself really with the Republican Party, and I don't see myself as part of the Democratic Party, mainly because I don't join clubs. I think it really comes down to, and may come down to this in 2028. It's not red and blue, not Democratic and Republican. It's right and wrong. And if you
Yeah.
can make your decision on who you're going to vote for there, you can be identified for who you are. If you choose to vote on the side of right, I mean, when I say right and wrong, racism, not racism. That's pretty cut and dried. You're either right or you're wrong. There is no in
Evil and
between.
not evil. Insanity and not insanity.
Truth or lies, decency, indecency, justice or injustice. That's my point.
Brain or no brain.
You know, I made a suggestion, maybe on a live, maybe in the podcast. I'm trying to evaluate what went on with Donald Trump getting elected, why he got elected the first time, why he got elected the second time. And I think it does have a lot to do with the younger people in this country. And younger people are going to take the wheel in 2028. There's going to be more millennials and Gen Zs voting in 2028 than boomers and Gen X's. Um, we're in a when you look at the TV news, we had Walter Cronkite. It was very serious, very dry, very honest, very true. We
Edward
don't
R.
have
Murrow
that
too.
now. Edward R. Murrow, Huntley and Brinkley, all those people. We don't have that kind of journalism now. In fact, we don't have journalism. Everything is more tabloid. Everything is like current affair when I was younger, kind of fluffy, kind of scandalous, kind of whatever's getting
It's
people's
National
attention.
Enquirer. It's National
Yeah,
Enquirer.
exactly. Everything is National Enquirer. And my point is that in terms, regardless, in spite of policy and in spite of politicians specifically, I think the Democrats have to do what the Republicans did inadvertently. They didn't intend to do this, but it happened that way by virtue of who their candidate was. We almost have to build a brand for whatever person they decide to be as the candidate. You got to hype them up like they did Donald Trump. They've got to become They need to become popular, even though they say it's not a popularity contest. It absolutely is. But we got to create almost a legend, and I don't mean a lie, but cr- build somebody up that's got legendary status to ultimately win uh, the presidential election in 2028. It's not about the parties. It's not about how you're going to make the streets better or make the trains run faster anymore. It's about who's the cool, popular one, who's the one that makes you feel good. And I'm sad to say that because that's not the way you should vote for president, but this is where we are.
Yeah. I also wanted to sort of issue an apology to myself, to Governor Gavin Newsom, and to the audience of the Boomer Brigade as well for calling him Gavin Newscum that one time I was on the podcast earlier. This was right after he went on the podcast with the late and very much not great Charlie Kirk. I was just really, really pissed off that he would have the audacity to do that, given where the state that he runs. So
Well,
I don't know what
um,
happened to I don't know what happened to Gavin Newsom. I think he found God, honestly, with what's going on with how much he's trolling, you know, the the devil's love child right now. But to add to that as well, you know what? I think I'm just going to say this because we're on that topic anyway. I like to see the 2024 election as a census of Satan's illegitimate children. It just, if nothing else, it tells you the number of evil people, the number of soulless, blood-sucking ghouls we have in this country.
yeah. Well, I said some things about Gavin Newsom. I'm not apologizing for them because what I meant when I said it, when it was that particular time, it was justified, it was appropriate. See, the thing with Gavin Newsom is, and this is one thing we have to be careful of falling into. Gavin Newsom has done some fucked up shit with regards to the podcast, and there are people in California that don't like what he did. There is no perfect politician. But with his attacks on Donald Trump, that's exactly what we needed at the right time. Two ways to look at that. That's the real Gavin Newsom, or that is the shrewd Gavin Newsom, figuring out what he needed to do to to catch people's interest. This is what people do when you have somebody bullying you and somebody fights back for you, you jump on board. That's my friend. That's my buddy because we have the same enemy. And you have to be careful of that because um, a lot of people understand how that works to manipulate people. As far as Gavin Newsom being the Democratic nominee, could be. I mean, at this point, he may be the front runner, but we're 3 years away from that. And if you've ever watched presidential potential candidates, 3 years is pretty far out. A lot of things can happen between now and then. I believe that a candidate for the Democratic Party at some point between now and, say, a year out from the election, a candidate, an obvious candidate, will emerge naturally by way of whatever they say, whatever they do. We don't know who that is. It could be Gavin Newsom, but to think that any possible candidate would be perfect and the exact person is not going to happen. And that's the problem we came up with on November 5th. I like Kamala, but I don't like all that she does, so that I'm not going to vote for her because of this and this and this. We're not in a position, we can't afford to do something like this. We got to get off this path. And if whoever's the candidate doesn't cover absolutely everything you need, you still need to vote for them so that you can ultimately get to where you want to go. You can't have everything all at once.
Yeah. Also, by the way, just as a quick clarification, Nick Fuentes and the Groypers think exactly how you described, where they say, "I'm not voting for this and this and this." They don't vote. Nick Fuentes doesn't vote, and he tells the Groypers not to vote either.
Really?
Be- yeah, mainly because they want to see somebody running who is a literal neo-Nazi. The only person they will vote for is a literal neo-Nazi, just like them.
Hmm.
And honestly, at that point, if the only way person you're going to vote for is someone who is so evil, you literally can't mention their name on TikTok or you'll get in trouble, you really shouldn't have the right to vote at all if you're going to use it to just hurt people.
No. big a group do you think this Groyper thing is? I mean, how many people do you think we're talking about? I mean, is it a small group that we shouldn't even worry about, or is it really rampant amongst young people?
It's not that rampant. It's a section of the incel subculture. How big is it? The answer to no matter how big it is, the answer to how big is it is always going to be too big. Like as long as it exists, it's too big. It shouldn't exist as a thing at all. But I would estimate it to be a a sizable chunk of the incel crowd because there's an incel to Groyper pipeline very much, but it's not really that much overall. It's definitely enough to be concerned about, but it's probably less than a million. Now that's not comforting. That's not a comforting thought at all that we have that many stupid or evil people in this country, but it's better than them being the majority, which they're not.
We know how much noise MAGA makes, but in realistic terms, there may be 25 to 30% of the Republicans in real terms.
22% we think because that's how many of them
Would you
voted.
would you think the Groypers are similar in terms of the young people, the percentage of the
Yeah,
young people that are
their
Groypers,
percentage.
or is that even higher or less
Actually,
or lesser?
I actually believe that the number of the percentage of the MAGA people is closer to like 15 or 13% because the number of people that voted for DT the first time in 2024 was actually pretty high. There's people who are just
Yeah.
voting for him because they were just they didn't like what was going on. They just like this sucks. We want someone to change it. They just didn't like who was in at the time, so they voted for the other guy. You guys are still morons, and we're still gonna punish you for it. But at the same time, the number is actually quite small. And with the Groypers, I think it's pretty similar. It's like 13 to 15%. It's quite small. It's not nothing, but it's still enough that we know how to deal with it without, panicking or freaking out.
Well, the reason I ask is because, as I said, it's known that the younger people are going to have a big impact on the 2028 election, millennials and Gen Zs. And if they play a big role, much like MAGA does with their noise, then it could be an issue to be concerned about. But like you say, if they don't vote at all, then they're inconsequential at this point in terms of presidential elections.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When you talk about the club thing, there are different layers to that as far as I can see it. And the way I would explain it is I am a little bit sort of I'm registered with the local my local chapter of the Democratic Party, the California Democratic Party, and I actually do kind of like them because they kind of know what they're doing and they're trying to make the best of the situation that they got. Sure, there are some of them that are corrupt, but for the most part, they've done really good things for the state. Like California, don't get me wrong. California is a really good place to live, and everyone has rights. Everyone has the ability to do the things they want. We got it pretty good here, and it's mainly thanks to the California Democratic Party. That said, I'm not a huge fan of the federal Democratic Party. And how am I going to tie this into this thing? There's a similar sentiment going on right now in, my favorite place in the world, Canada, up north. And what I mean by that is, okay, Manitoba, the province that I'm probably going to end up going to college in, they have a provincial government that right now the new Democratic Party, the NDP, is in power there, and their premier Wab Kinew, it comes from Wabanakwa or something because he's First Nations, he's Native American basically,
Okay.
and he is quite popular, and the Manitoba NDP is probably the most popular provincial variant of the NDP there is. That said, Canadians aren't a huge fan of where the federal NDP is at right now, especially since they just came off of a thing with Jagmeet Singh, who was not a very popular leader. He lost his election and had to step down as leader of the NDP. So they're going to bring in someone to replace him. So that's really what it ties into is if I'm living in say Manitoba, I'm probably going to be a pretty big fan of the Manitoba NDP, but not crazy about the overall Canadian NDP, the federal branch. And that's the same thing with me here at home.
Let me ask you this. I get a lot of people DMing me and emailing me that they're terrified, especially if they have kids. How do we keep them safe? I had a woman who's a regular, who's been around for a long time, as far as following my content. Um, she was concerned about her son. She's a younger black woman, and she has a son that's 28 years old, who's also black, of course. And she says, I'm fearful because of the racism and because of um, the ICE and all this shit, especially with what went down in Mississippi with um,
Oh God, yeah,
the yeah,
the two guys that got lynched, yeah, because
yeah. So she's
that was a lynching.
yeah, no question. But she was worried about the safety of her son, and she says, "What can I do about it?" I don't know exactly. But then I asked her. I said, "Where does he live?" And I'm thinking, "Oh God, Alabama, Mississippi, something like that." And then really don't know it. But she said San Francisco area. I said, "I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be
Yeah,
fine there. Just don't go to Alabama. Don't go to Kentucky. Don't go to fucking Mississippi."
yeah,
Would
no,
you agree with that as a Californian?
I
Am I
definitely
right?
would. Yeah, I
Okay.
definitely would. Um, I always get super duper pissed at. First of all, I dare ICE to try and come to San Francisco. You fucks will not last 5 minutes there. I guarantee it. For another thing, I really get pissed off when Newsweek talks about, oh, um Republican gubernatorial candidate says this and this and this, trying to track voters from this. Shut up. A Republican's never going to be governor of California again. I don't care what anyone says. Californians didn't weren't really down with Republicans in the first place, and we sure as fuck don't like MAGA. Don't try
Right.
and come and sell us on your MAGA nonsense. Don't don't think people are abandoning the Democratic Party in California. They may not, be as you can not like a party and still vote for them because they're the only reasonable choice, can't you?
Well,
So,
absolutely. And that's where people get
yeah,
nervous about it. Well, the Democratic Party's approval ratings down. Yeah, but the alternative is pretty fucked up. You're still probably going to vote Democratic. But the point is we understand that the Democrats need some help. So you need to work better. You need to do better. Basically, those people saying that are saying they're not approving of Democrats, they're basically saying you're our only option. You better fucking do better. It's
yeah,
leverage that they're applying.
yeah, no, exactly. But really, what that whole thing all just boils down to is, please do not try and sell Californians on MAGA. We do not like that shit. And also, do not think a Republican candidate, especially a MAGA one, has a even has anywhere, even has a snowball's chance in hell of winning the governor's seat here. They they don't have a shot. Not a fucking chance. They're not gonna make it.
The same thing can be said for Minnesota. We heard this week that Tim Walz has announced that he's going to run for reelection, a third term.
Welcome back,
Uh,
Mr. Governor. We missed you.
yeah. And a lot of people are surprised by that. I don't know if they thought he'd run for president. I like Tim Walz. I think he could be a president. I just don't know if he has the je ne sais quoi to win it, the it factor. He's good. He's smart. He's a great governor. Uh, but he's going to run for the governorship, and people are worried. Well, some people don't like him. This could be a problem. I don't see us getting a Republican governor in this state in this climate for a while in Minnesota. It's much like
Yeah,
California. People are tired of this shit. We've actually, our state, California, like for example, the vaccination thing, how they're limiting who can get vaccinations. And all they're really doing is taking away or giving the insurance companies the option not to pay for these vaccinations. So people who maybe should get the vaccination but can't afford it won't get the vaccination. But in my state and in your state, they said fuck the feds. Everybody gets a vaccination if they want it, and that's what makes me feel good about being in my state. And obviously, it would be the same for you in your state. There's the blue states will take care of their people to the best of their abilities, in spite of the feds.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Um, one thing I will say is the when I think it was around the first time I came on the podcast, I mentioned the two latte liberals um in my filmmaking class who went on and on about how she's a cop, and all this stuff, and I guess didn't vote or voted for Jill Stein, which, by the way, you two people know who you are. Fuck you. You're going to hell for what you did.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about how they and everyone else in the crowd, they really want Hassan Piker to run.
Who the fuck is that?
He is basically the left's equivalent of Joe Rogan. He's a streamer, he's a podcaster, he's very much a far lefter, but the problem is he is very much a purist. If somebody is not a hardcore democratic socialist like him, like if somebody like isn't like to the left of Zoran Mamdani, he's like, don't support this person. He is a hardcore purity tester. Only vote for somebody who is really pure and can make you feel really righteous and this and that. I, for one, I identify with him politically, but personally, I can't stand the fucking guy. He got thrown out of the DNC for encouraging people to let Donald Trump win. So that should give you an idea of the kind of stuck up, stick up his ass latte liberal that this guy is.
Yeah, and I think we've learned a lesson. Hopefully, we've learned a lesson with Donald
Yeah.
Trump voting him in
And
twice. We don't need people that don't understand how to run government. It's a big machine. You need to know how to run it in order to get anything accomplished. Joe Biden is case in point, and Donald Trump hasn't gotten anything done because as much as he's been aggressive, he doesn't know how the system works, and he keeps failing.
yeah, and to somebody in the chat who in the chat of the comments of the previous videos who thanked me for calling out Hassan Piker for quote unquote supporting terrorists. That has nothing to do with supporting terrorists. First of all, I'm just going to come out and say it. Israel is committing genocide. They are, even if they weren't at first, they are now. And also, the Palestinians aren't terrorists. Hamas is. The Palestinians are not. Let's just put that issue to bed, okay? I was not.
Uh,
This had nothing to do with that. What I was calling Hassan Piker out for was for trying to. This is Hassan Abi, I think they call him on YouTube. I was calling him out for getting us into this situation by encouraging people, oh, don't vote for her or vote for Jill Stein or whatever because she's not perfect. It's like, dude, life does not have time for your fucking purity tests. We cannot afford to live by your purity culture standards. That's what I was calling this guy out for, is getting us into this mess by being like, well, she's not perfect, so I'm not going to vote for her. Then it's your fault when the literal Nazi gets in, dude.
yeah, when the people, for me, there's two people that I have problems with as much as I do MAGA. And those are the people that wanted to vote and teach somebody a lesson because they didn't get exactly what they wanted, as you stated. But then there's a bunch of people that just didn't do anything. They were too lazy. They knew what was at stake and they still sat on their ass. While they may not be as mean and evil as MAGA, they certainly are complicit with MAGA because they allowed them to gain purchase and become in control of the House, the Senate, and of course the Oval Office. Those people, you would hope they've learned a lesson. I'm just not convinced that they do. There is an epidemic of stupid in this country, and once you're stupid, there's not much you can do about it unless you're willing to learn, and apparently they're not.
It's worse than an epidemic of stupid. There's a difference between being stupid where the intelligence isn't there, where you just don't know, or you're ignorant, or you're maybe got some mental health problems or whatever, like your brain's just stuck in one place. There's stupid, and then there's arrogant. And the far
Yeah,
lefters, the auth left, because it's not really the far left we're up against, it's the auth left, the authoritarian left, who really want Soviet Union 2.0 because they think that the Soviet Union was the perfect place to be. They are arrogant. The people who do not want to be who do not want to be argued with, who do not want to be disputed with because you're not pure, so you can't talk to me. They're not just stupid; they're arrogant.
Yeah.
They will always think they're right, even if they're shown to their face that they're wrong, because they cannot reconcile the fact that they're wrong with who they are as people. Just so we're clear, the human brain hates being wrong. You literally get a tiny bit of brain inflammation every time you have to admit you're wrong. The human brain does not like that. The only thing that's different between people is how well you can resist your brain's hatred of being wrong. Some people have the integrity and decency, like you, me, and everyone else in the Boomer Brigade, to resist it. A lot of people also don't, and they're arrogant or
What you're
stupid
saying
or
about
evil.
what you're saying about the off left and their arrogance and such
Let me write it in. Let me write it in
is
chat.
it is it,
It's
it's
off left.
exactly it's actually off left, yeah, but it's exactly um, what the MAGA group can be accused of as well.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
they're arrogant. So you know, you wonder. People keep talking about having a two-party system. That's what we have. I don't know that that's true because we have the normal right, the normal left, relatively speaking. Then we have MAGA. Then we have the off left. We've got more than two parties going on here, and therein lies the problem, and therein lies why we don't have unity.
Yeah, exactly. Also, by the way, just for because people are probably going to see this and get a little confused, is it's not off left, OFF. It's actually AUTH. It's off left, like authoritarian left. That's where that term comes
Okay.
from. And I first heard it from Parker's Permaculture, who talks about this thing regularly. She talks about off left tankies, and tankies are basically the left wing equivalent of MAGA. They're actually pretty right wing. They're kind of horrible, to be honest. A lot of them are very misogynistic and very racist. They're basically tankies are only on the left because capitalism failed them and they want to change. They're not actually pro rights. They're not pro anything really. They just they just don't like the system and they want something that's better for them, not necessarily for anyone else. So tankies are not really our friends, and we need to remember that.
Well, when you say the off left, do you think they're a creation of how Democrats and Republicans, for that matter, have done business where they are happy to fill their pockets and feed the rich people? I mean, that's one thing I learned in the last election is stock market can be fine, the jobs can be fine, but there's still young people out there that can't afford to pay for their education because it's outrageous. They can't afford to rent apartments. They can't afford to live. So, from their standpoint, the politicians, the government has failed them, in spite of the fact that it looks good for other people with money and stuff. Is that really where that comes from? That the young people in this country feel like they've been left out and feel like they've been left twisting in the wind?
Yeah, I could see that. I think it's more to do with really what this all stems from when it comes down to it is religion, because of the talk about purity and righteousness and all that. That's all religious bullshit. It's coming from that.
Wow.
I believe that a lot of the arrogance and the belief in purity culture really just comes from religion, or rather, not religion as it is now, but the really awful forms of religion that existed in the past. Like, I can speak to this actually. I'm part of the Unitarian Universalist, which is probably one of the most progressive left wing denominations of Christianity there is. We are descended as a community, as a denomination of the Christian faith. We Unitarian Universalists are descended from the fucking Puritans.
Wow.
And the Puritans, someone has to explain to me how that happened, because the Puritans literally burned people at the stake if they thought they were witches, among many other really awful and horrible things, like banning playing cards on Sundays and putting people in prison for going to church on Christmas Day. Like, they were really awful. And so how we went from that to people who go to church and yet also draw OC femboy characters in their spare time is fucking beyond me. I couldn't explain it to you because I don't get it myself.
We're at the end here. We're going to wrap things up. I just have to bring something up, and I think you'll appreciate this. We know that Donald Trump is in England meeting with King Charles and doing whatever the fuck he's doing. I got an email from a lady who's a listener by the name of Jacqueline, and she asked if I saw this particular video. And I just laughed when she told me, and I said, "No, I have not seen the video." So she just sent me that video, and it's so perfect. Donald Trump, Melania Trump, King Charles, and other people are standing there in line as horses and, the English military going by. A horse goes by, a horse goes by, but then a horse goes by, and as the horse is just passing in front of Donald Trump, his tail lifts up and the horse takes a shit and then keeps walking. How perfect is that? That's
That's
fucking absolutely
that's
perfect.
perfect.
It's online. Go find it.
There's another video somewhere on Reddit, I think it was, that I saw where a guy in a MAGA hat carrying like a God hates the F slur sign or something is going around making noise on the street, and a cow, like a truck drawn cow trailer goes by, like a pickup truck with a trailer with cows in it goes by. You've seen these on the road maybe sometimes?
Yeah.
Like it's like one of those horse carrier trailer things, but there was a cow in it, and the and as this car is going by, the cow is waving its tail and has explosive diarrhea all over this dude. It was like a sniper shot. Like the cow just went oh, and just got all over this. It ruined his hat, ruined his clothes. The sign had this shit all over it. It was it's fucking hilarious.
Well, it's a sad state of affairs when we end this show on scat stories. But I have to bring this up too. I have a 3 month old grandson that we're watching a few times a week. Love this kid. He's just chubby little kid, always laughing and stuff. But I was talking to my daughter-in-law, and one of the things about having a boy baby is at one point or another they're gonna pee on you. It just happens. And I was telling my daughter-in-law that, and she says, "Well, that's never happened to me."
Oh no, I
And
remember hearing about this. I know where this is going.
and then she texts me later, "Well, he got me." I go, "Well, then you're a real mother now that your son peed on you." He said, "But it didn't stop there." Um, she had his diaper off, and he had explosive diarrhea, and it went like about 6 feet across the room, and everybody's freaking out because this kid. I told my wife. My granddaughter has a tendency to have a little gas now and then, and she has no shame. She does it and laughs about it and stuff like that. I was going to teach my granddaughter a joke that I heard one time that I think is absolutely disgusting but hilarious. And my wife said, "Now you better not do that." There was something I saw one time, and guy passes gas, and he looks at the other guy and he goes, "Boy, that's going to itch when it dries." I could
Oh
just I could just imagine my granddaughter saying that to my son. That would have been hilarious. Wife put the nix on that. We aren't doing that. But
yeah, small wonder. Jesus Christ.
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
so what
Well,
so
we're
what you're saying is your grandson, right?
yeah,
What you're saying is your grandson trumped all over the living room.
he did. He did. Well, and I said the other day too, and I said I realized as I'm sitting there with my grandson, 3 months old, he's gurgling and talking incoherently, and he has a diaper full of shit. I'm thinking this kid could be president someday. That's all it takes,
God,
apparently.
God, I hope you're not. God, I hope that's just a joke and not a prophetic vision of the future. Christ Almighty.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Well, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I appreciate you taking time and talking. We were going to have Trucker T with us, but he was otherwise um, occupied with his
He
son,
wasn't he coming back
grandson's football game.
from a football game? Yeah, he's on the road, I think.
Yeah, he said he was in Kalamazoo and he was coming back. He saw his grandson's football game, and I will never argue with somebody who's going to see their grandkids' sports. I think that's the best thing in the
I just
world,
want to
and
do a show with him.
by all means do it. Yeah, well, we can set it up. I mean, I do a show every day, so and I will tell you what I got coming up because people will be interested. And tomorrow I'm going to, or today, as you're listening to this, I've got Ed coming on for Saturday, and everybody looks forward to Ed. He's always got some great insights. I was going to have Denise a while back, but then she got sick and couldn't show up. But I'm also going to record something with her tomorrow for Sunday. So good weekend planned on the Rational Boomer podcast with more good guests. We always have good guests, but it's always good to hear from Ed and Denise. I'm interested to see how she ties what's going on now with history. She does. She has a knack for that, and it's very interesting.
Yeah. And by the way, everyone, make sure to make your daily prayers to the Reaper. Send him encouragements, because the only reason that old Taco Boy hasn't died yet is because the Reaper doesn't want to come get him. So
Yeah,
let's send our encouragements to the Reaper. Tell him to do his damn job. And with regards to Taco Boy and his entire administration, I only have one thing to say about those fucks.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.